Hello, this is Kyle, also known as AlienTude, and today what I have for you is kind of a short and informal impressions video about this LK Chen US Model 1860 Cavalry Saber. Now, this is a loaner from LK Chen, and it was originally going to be going through the full review process. However, some circumstances changed, and LK Chen needs it back before I had the chance to do the full review. So instead we're doing this impressions video right before I box it up and send it back. Now I haven't had much of a chance to do a lot with this sword other than a little bit of dry handling and some small amount of cutting. So that includes stuff like photography. I haven't taken any pictures of it other than a few very informal ones right when I first received it. So this is pretty much just going to be me talking into the camera with no overlays or anything like that. So you're going to have to deal with looking at my face if you want to watch this video. So some very quick stats on this. This weighs in at 2 pounds and just under 9 ounces. It is balanced right around there. That looks to me like about 4.5 to 5 inches. I haven't done any of my measurements either. And it is incredibly beefy at the base of the blade. Take a look at how thick that is. Hopefully you can see it. And it tapers dramatically down to a much thinner blade. So that is true to the originals. While I don't have an original 1860 Cavalry Saber to compare this to, it is absolutely true that the majority of sabers had very thick spines and tapered dramatically. That helps you get a long blade that still keeps a lot of the weight back here and gives you more reach and keeps the blade overall well balanced. Now, at 2 pounds, 9 ounces, this is not a light sword, but it's also not a heavy sword. It is definitely forward balanced. I can definitely feel the tip weight out there. And it doesn't drag the sword forward, but it definitely is, it's noticeable. There's weight out there towards the tip, and it is definitely noticeable out there. And I should mention that this shoulder is aching a little bit right now as I've gotten older. These little aches and pains are just nonstop and take forever to not ache anymore. Aging sucks. It doesn't really affect my use of the sword though. One of the things I really like about this sword is just how well crafted the entire blade is. These fullers, there's one very wide fuller and then another one, smaller one up near the spine. These are very well crafted, very nicely finished, and there's a lot of detail in the blade geometry. Right at the end of the fuller, the spine narrows dramatically. It's not a sharpened false edge, but it's a much thinner edge here, and that's going to aid in the cutting. This does come with a properly constructed wood core scabbard, which is clad in metal with the correct suspension rings. From what I understand, these are the correct size. The fit here is quite good. There's a little bit of rattle if I shake it, but if I hold it upside down, it doesn't, and shake, it doesn't come out at all. And in fact, I have to give it just a bit of a tug to really get it out. Now, you probably won't be able to see this, but inside the scabbard, there's actually kind of like a spring mechanism that grabs the blade and helps guide it through and keeps retention. And I believe it's actually grabbing in the fuller and keeping it tensioned and helping guide the blade through the entire thing. That's another thing that is true to originals that you pretty much don't often see on reproductions. Good job on it from LK Chen there. The hilt work here is pretty good. The leather feels nice. The wire wrapping is done very nicely, very tight. Although the fit right here of this back strap is a little bit sharp. Not terribly so, especially right here. I can definitely catch my finger there when I'm doing this. Now when I've used it, I haven't felt any biting into my hand, but I think the potential is there for it to do that because it is a little bit of a prominent ledge there. It's not terrible, but it's something that could be improved. Honestly, I think if you wanted to fix this on yours, you could probably just kind of wrap it in some kind of padding and use a C-clamp to just push this down a bit more, and it would end up being a little bit flusher. Probably shouldn't need to do that, but I don't think it's a big deal. In terms of cutting, the edge on this sword is not great. It was not new when it got to me though. It was first sent to a group of reenactors, and I don't know what they did with it. They might have diminished the edge themselves. You know, if you're not careful when you're sheathing and drawing it out of the scabbard, it could certainly rub up against metal and dull the blade some. So when I was cutting with it, on things that required a bit sharper of an edge, just basic water bottles, 2-liter bottle, and pool noodles, it didn't do great cuts. It wasn't terrible on the water bottles, but it didn't really give me good clean cuts. A pool noodle, it basically failed completely. I could get it to bite in about halfway through the noodle, and then it just wouldn't really continue the cut at all. And even when it did cut that halfway in, it was kind of jagged and tearing. So not particularly sharp. However, on a softer target like a milk jug, it actually cuts that quite well and kept the jug in place. And on my last cut here, you can see I actually took a chunk off my stand, and I didn't even notice that until after reviewing my footage, because there was absolutely no hand shock. And that's nice. That's cutting through like about a ½ inch of wood and not even feeling it from the sword. That's quality workmanship there. That means that this sword has the correct harmonics, and it didn't translate any of that shock into my hand, and it didn't take any damage from cutting into that wood either. So I think this would be a much more effective cutter if it was sharpened up a little bit, but it doesn't need a lot. The edge beveling here is very refined, very nice. There's no secondary bevel or anything like that. So I don't think it would take very much to bring this to a really good edge, but it's not there right now. And with that, I'm pretty much going to wrap up this video. I think this is an excellent entry into the market because there's not a whole lot of accurate saber reproductions out there. In fact, the only one in a similar price range I can think of is the windlass 1796 Light Cavalry Saber, which is a beast of a backyard cutter and a sword that is a lot of fun to own. This is another entry into that range of the market, and I'm glad to see it because, like I said, there just aren't a lot of good saber reproductions. Now, I can't say personally how accurate this is to an original, but I can say that just from experience handling a lot of swords, you get an idea of what a sword should handle like, what it should feel like. And while I don't have a lot of experience with sabers, this feels right. It doesn't feel clunky. It doesn't feel like it's moving around incorrectly. So I'm reasonably confident that it is accurate. LK Chen does a lot of work based off of actual antiques, and I would trust them to be able to, generally speaking, reproduce an antique if they have their hands on one. And I think that's what they did here. So I think this is likely to be a good buy, although this is just an impressions video. I'm not going to do a full verdict on this because I just haven't had the time to really dive deep into it. But I hope this video has helped you out if you are interested in buying one of these. Until next time, Alien Dude out.